Right here with Hayes Carlyon, our Jaguars beat reporter, and you hear him every weekday afternoon on the Franchi Show here on 1010XL. And of course, you can read his work, his Jaguars blog on 1010XL.com as well. And Hayes, a little bit of an emotional day today over at Everbank, or at the stadium now for the Jags, as it was Paul Posluszny's retirement ceremony that took place over at the stadium.
Yeah, it was a really interesting vibe to start with. It felt different than any other availabilities that we go to. So that was sort of interesting. And then it really hit a different level once Telvin was introduced. They played a very nice tribute video to Posluszny, showing a lot of his highlights over his 7 years with the Jaguars. Then the show went over to Telvin Smith, and before he got a word out, Telvin was balling. And it was hard not to remain composed seeing Telvin Smith talk about how much Paul Posluszny means to him and his growth as an NFL professional, particularly at the same position at linebacker. And it was really unbelievable to see. And there were a lot of teammates that were there. A lot of the guys were in the building today with OTAs getting started tomorrow. So to see guys like Cam Robinson, Unique Ngakoue, Calais Campbell was there, locked in on what Telvin was saying. It was really pretty spectacular. And Telvin didn't mince words. He said, he felt like the team let Paz down last year in the AFC title game. And he made it very clear that they're dedicating this season, which they believe to be a year in which they can win the Super Bowl, to Paul Posluszny.
Yeah, and obviously, that's a testament to how much that team really appreciated Puz and what he meant to the Jaguar franchise and organization. And then, of course, Puz speaks today. It seemed like it was very difficult for him, but he knew that the time was now to just kind of close the book on what's been a really solid career for Puz.
Yeah, and it was typical Posluszny, very well prepared. Obviously, he had, when he announced his retirement, he had the beautifully written retirement letter. But this was right in that same line of preparedness. He went through a list of a bunch of people, from obviously coaches to the guys that were helping him out with getting tickets, to the guys that helped him with the equipment and getting through their injuries and keeping his body up to shape. Really went down the line, and you wouldn't expect anything less. And you can tell, this is a very difficult decision for Paul. He talked about not wanting to be a year too late to make this decision, not wanting to miss the play that really cost Telvin and Miles, and he didn't want to have to ever look at them and be like, it was my fault that we didn't get this done. So he acknowledges that he might be leaving a year too early, but he didn't want to have the regret of staying on too late. Really powerful stuff. And, he was obviously asked what he's going to do from here. And you can tell he's still sort of processing it. He said, there's going to be some nightmares to come, because you can tell how much he appreciates the structure of being an NFL professional linebacker.
And finally, kind of two questions in this. How do you think the fan base will remember Puz? And you've had the pleasure of covering him for a while too, all the 7 years that he's been here as a Jag. How will you remember Paul Posluszny?
Yeah, Paul was great for me coming in. I'd never covered the NFL before. I got promoted from the Gators to the Jaguars, Gus Bradley's first year as Jaguars coach. And Paul was always tremendous with his time, tremendous with his knowledge of the game, and very cooperative, and somebody that you could always go to, even if the team was going through a really hard time. You knew that Paul would be professional and talk about it the best that he could. So I always appreciated that about Paul, and he's going to be missed. He was a Good Guy Award winner, really the first one since Ryan O'Halloran at the Times Union reinstalled that. The Good Guy goes to the most courteous, easy to deal with guy to the media that we deal with all year long. Paul won it, I want to say in 2013 was the first year that it came back. He was very well deserved. So Paul will be missed by everybody in that building. The coaches, it's obvious. His teammates, that's obvious. But the media that cover the team as well have learned a lot about the game from being around Paul Posluszny.
And how do you think the fan base will remember him as?
I think it very strong. I think there will always be a section of the fans that want to see him, go into the pride, and I don't know that that's where it's going to go. But I think to a man, you can't have watched Paul Posluszny for these last several years and at least respect how he was as a professional. And so I think that he's planning on staying here with his wife Elizabeth and their two children. I would imagine that Paul Posluszny will certainly be admired, respected in this market for decades to come.
It was a sad day, but a day of memory, obviously, too, where Paul Posluszny does officially retire in his years in the NFL, and obviously one of the better Jags that we got to see here in Jacksonville. He is Hayes Carlyon, of course, his Jaguars blog presented by Superior Fence and Rail. You could always read on 1010XL.com, and you hear him every weekday afternoon on The Frangie Show here on 1010XL. Hayes, as always, thanks for the time.
Thank you.